Well, this one took me quite a while to get around to and really get into, and yeah, the more time I spent with it, the more I just fell in love with it. So let's talk about it.
Don't know how you did. Have you come home? I'll have the woman in you.
Live at Bush Hall from Black Country New Road. So, Black Country New Road is a relatively new indie rock band conglomeration. They like to consider themselves more of like experimental rock, post-punk, post-rock, art rock. They really hit the ground running with their 1-2 punch of For the First Time, and then followed it up immediately after last year with Ants from Up There, which, again, just completely blew my mind. Like, this was kind of the soundscapes that I loved from like early Arcade Fire, when indie was still new and fresh and these kinds of sounds were really like the cutting edge. And I feel as though a lot of the indie acts from that wave has kind of gotten a little bit stale. It's just kind of, there's no longer this innovation that there once was. And let's be honest, the last album that Arcade Fire put out was a little bit of a dud. So I was super excited and super energized of these new kids on the block that really like re-energize. They have this energy about them, this emotional outpour that I could not stop loving about them. Now, unfortunately, one of the founding members and kind of what some people would consider like the frontman of Isaac Wood did leave like days before Ants from Up There came out. And Isaac was the lead singer. He was one of the lead guitarists in there. He wrote most of the songs himself. And so it was a pretty big blow when he had to step down due to mental health. And I applaud him for doing that. And I really hope that more musicians do this, realizing where that limit is and stepping back from projects to essentially maintain their own selves instead of burning out or doing stuff dangerously and things like that. So, if he wants to return, he has that option to do so rather than burning himself out completely and never being able to do that again. I'm glad to see that Isaac was, putting himself first. It just left the band in a little bit of an odd placement at this point because they booked a bunch of shows. And now their front man is gone, the main singer. And a lot of the songs that were on For the First Time and Ants from Up There really depended on Isaac's presence. So, the band had a little bit of a crisis here. Do they kind of call it quits right here, just as the momentum is getting going? Or do they soldier on and basically whip up a bunch of new material for these shows that they had booked? And they decided to soldier on, and I seriously applaud them for doing that. So that's kind of the genesis of where this album comes from. It is a live album, but it is a live album of purely new material, which I really, really appreciate. This is kind of harkening back to, the 70s when bands would put out live records of new material. Thinking of like Rick Wakeman with Journey to the Center of the Earth. I'm thinking of Emerson, Lake and Palmer with Pictures at an Exhibition. Deep Purple with their concerto or concerto with orchestra or something along those lines. And it's something that I really wish more bands would do. It provides a more exclusive listening experience to a lot of these live shows, knowing that this is going to be songs that they probably haven't heard before. Almost guaranteed that they haven't heard before, and that will be recorded and preserved pretty much for always and ever, and it's such a unique and interesting idea that I'm shocked more bands haven't done this. So anyway, part of the reason why they were doing this was to get their feet back under them, making sure that they can still soldier on, and also just to have material to play live. So I don't want to say any of these songs are kind of like a rough draft or even a second or third draft. That's the thing about this album. Each of these songs do feel like a fully fleshed out, realized track. There's some rough edges here and there that they probably would have been able to polish off if they were in the studio with, a good producer or mixer behind them. But honestly, I think that aspect adds to the actual enjoyment of this album. And that's part of the reason why I'm really, really digging this album. It's got that raw aspect, that very organic feel that a lot of these tracks really need and deserve in this moment. This is also the band really coming to terms with the loss of their really good friend. Isaac was a linchpin within this band, and it's them kind of grieving that process. And even though no track directly kind of addresses that, you can definitely feel it throughout throughout the album as a whole. A lot of these songs are a little bit more melodramatic, a little bit more emotional driven, and a little bit more subdued as well. You know, it's a lot more of a cathartic release, but not in a big yelling out, raging against the dying of the light kind of an idea. It's just more of this acceptance, this realization of what's to come, and then like the soldiering on. Like the musicianship is top notch. Like this is the best Black Country New Road has ever sound. And maybe it's just their commandment of an audience, their commandment of a live presentation that's really making that music kind of come alive to such an extent. But yeah, like tracks like, you know, the big track of Turbine's Pigs, which is almost 10 minutes long, has this such a slow, gradual build that when you finally get to the big crescendo at the end, it just knocks you on your ass. Like it really does kind of sucker punch you, even though there's such a massive buildup. Same with Dancers, which is probably my favorite track off the album. You know, the second last track, the buildup on here, you know, it's again a gradual climb that we get to this massive crescendo that I feel proggers of today really need to take note and pay attention to bands like this, because these kids, you know, for lack of a better term, these young adults are able to construct and pull off this massive climb, this massive crescendo, and these massive builds that I feel like a lot of modern proggers are really struggling to maintain and capture. Now, that being said, you know, there are a little bit, as I mentioned, a little bit of sharp edges around the fold. Because Isaac isn't here as the main singer, everybody else has kind of had to kind of grab the reins in that sense. And I feel as though as good as Lewis Evans is on the saxophone, flute, and vocals, I feel as though he's the one that he's trying his hardest. You know, he really is. The first track that he kind of comes on solo on with Across the Pond Friend, again, has brilliant music. Again, masterclass in terms of musicianship. And I love, again, the big build, the big climb. But there's many times when Isaac is kind of hitting the note a little bit flat, and it's just, it's a little bit of the inexperience. Maybe it's a little bit of confidence and really going for it, because there are moments, especially at the latter part of this track, where he really does grab onto that note, holds onto it, and really commands it. But you can feel, because it's in a little bit of a live setting and he only has 3 or 4 runs at it, sometimes he either runs a little too hard and trips over the feet, and sometimes there's that hesitancy to start. And, you know, it's, on the one hand, it's a little bit endearing, but on the other hand, it's like, oh, bud, like I can see you're really going for it. Now, luckily, he does shine a little bit more on the Laughing Song, the 5th track, but still, I feel as though he's trying to emulate that powerhouse that I feel Isaac was bringing to the table. And there are moments when he is able to at least graze up against it, but I feel as though he needs to find his own voice rather than trying to either imitate or kind of stand in the shadow of Isaac in that sense. It's a good way of honoring Isaac, but I don't know. I think he just needs to find his own kind of voice. The other 2 individuals that really step up to the plate in terms of the vocal works, we have May Kershaw, and I think that's Kershaw, on piano, accordion, and vocals. And May is kind of streamlining what a Sia kind of indie queen has, and it's fine. You know, she's very serviceable on The Boy, the 2nd track, as well as, you know, the titular song of Turbines and Pigs. And I love her little bit of a hesitancy within the vocal works. I think she leans a little bit too much on her influences, and I really hope that she finds her own singing style that she can really dig her teeth into. But for the most part, I really was enjoying her presentation. And The Boy, even though it kind of has this like chapter aspect of it, I wasn't too much of a fan of that in that case. I think the star performer on this record and on this performance is Taylor Hyde on bass and vocals. She picks up a lot of the slack on this, providing the vocal works for probably about half of the tracks on here, with the opening and closing track of Up Song, as well as I've already mentioned Dancers. I Won't Always Love You, Laughing Song. Her voice is very unique. And that's one of the things that kept my ears open for it. It's just like, ooh, this is a very unique, very interesting presentation. I loved her commanding presence on here. Her bass work was fantastic and outstanding. I loved how meaty those were. I Won't Always Love You wasn't one of my favorite tracks from that. Same with Laughing Song, it was fine. But that 1-2 punch of Dancers and Up Song reprise just that like almost 9 minutes worth of music, I think it is just over 9 minutes worth of music, is just like, this album goes out with a bang. It really does. So yeah, in the end, this album was an absolute treat. You know, you can see the band is really wading through and kind of working through a lot of different things, kind of seeing where they want to go from here. I really feel this is a transitional album. I think that this is them kind of summarizing and capping off their first leg of their career, and now kind of figuring out where they want to go from here. So I think they're going to take a lot of what they learned from these tracks and move forward from here. And I am beyond excited to see what the next iteration of this band sounds like. So yeah, wrapping this all up, fantastic work. And I would absolutely say Live at Bush Hall from Black Country New Road is an album I absolutely love with my whole heart. This is an album that I absolutely recommend. You know, if you're an old fan of Black Country New Road, if you're a new fan, if you've never heard of these guys, this is a great place to start. They knocked it out of the park, absolutely. And all of those like issues that I have with this, you know, a little bit too raw at times. All the songs feel like, again, it's not necessarily that it's the first draft or the 10th draft, but it doesn't feel as though they're completely polished off. And I kind of like that. You know, I kind of like that almost their aspect of most of these songs, but I think it's because of that reason that I love them so much. So absolutely go and check it out. It gets the notes of approval. This is a run, don't walk to have a listen to it. And I'm just ashamed that I didn't get it out sooner, because this guy's been out for almost 2 months now. So go and check it out. You won't be disappointed. And that's all I've got for you guys today on Live at Bush Hall from Black Country New Road. What did you guys think about this record? It's been out for a while now, so I'm sure you've had a listen to it. If you haven't, please go ahead and listen to it. And once you have, let me know if you loved it, if you hated it, by commenting down below. Because that's all I got for you guys today. That's all I've got. So thank you all so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out.